Okay, so today we are working on color pair archetypes. Okay, so white, black, blue is probably research. The question is, how are we going to differentiate those from each other? Green and blue are definitely morph. So the green-blue archetype will likely be morph. However, we've had some suggestions that red should be the third morph color. All colors are going to have morph, but some colors are going to focus on it more than others. Although, we don't have to have 3 colors focus on it. We could just have the 2 and have one color pair that is about morph. So, and then we have propagate, which I was thinking would be red-green. But we also got a suggestion that red shouldn't really increase counters. I don't think that that is necessarily true, but that doesn't mean that we have to focus on that for this set. So I am open to whatever. But until people show up, I'm going to have trouble getting suggestions. So we had talked about maybe making a 4th mechanic to focus on, but we don't have that yet. So we had adapt as one suggestion for a +1/+1 counters mechanic. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should set out to design straight up a +1 counters mechanic. Got a lot of random garbage here, but I'll clean it up at some point. I can do this. Could be something as simple as that. And as a sort of a proof of concept, here is a creature that I could go on. And it doesn't have to be inherit. We could flavor it as something else. So it could be something as simple as that. Shoot, if we want to spice it up, we could even give it haste. And so, I mean, obviously, 1/1 for 1 is just kind of eh. Haste makes it okay. But then when it dies, it gives another +1 counter. So it's kind of like it's 2 power and toughness for 1 mana, which is pretty good. However, this does have to die to unlock the second half of it. So that's kind of a cool concept. Inherit? Don't necessarily like the flavor of inherit. What would be a good word for this? Let's go to thesaurus.com. Could be like entrust. So flavorfully, it's like, you know, in case I die, you know, here's this information for you. Something like that. That works. You're entrusting them with your power and toughness after you die. So I guess they're just inheriting your corpse? Okay, maybe the flavor's not perfect. We can always come up with another name for it. But there you go. That's a +1/+1 counter mechanic. Let's try and come up with another one. Inherit and trust sounds like you should be passing on like an artifact or something. Flavor's a little odd. I agree with you. In fact, I have designed an inherit mechanic that was based on artifacts. So, yeah, I'm not necessarily great at naming mechanics, and also trying to flavor it. Ignite. This is a bit more metaphorical. You're trying to ignite, in this case, this guy's like trying to ignite the truth among other people. And so, what exactly is the hole this mechanic would fill in / what is the flavor we're going for? Yeah, so when we had talked last time about propagate, which is not necessarily what this mechanic is called, but it's what I'm calling it. It's a proliferate variant where you only get to choose one thing to increase the counters on. So we came up with this mechanic because we had we needed something aggro, because our main 2 mechanics, morph and research, are pretty slow. So we wanted an aggro mechanic, and we came up with a proliferate variant. Cool, that's fine. But red was the color that didn't have morph or research in it, so red was the color that needed a mechanic. But in the Discord, I was suggesting that red-green is the color of propagate, and there was a little bit of pushback from that. People saying that red doesn't really want to increase counters; it's more focused on spending them. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that in the past, red has been interested in spending counters instead of increasing them, but I don't think that it has to be. I think that red, like proliferate, would be an interesting design space to explore, but I'm open to whatever. So if we do want to cut that, I was trying to come up with another mechanic that would be something that is more definitely in red's color pie. So another +1/+1 counter mechanic. We had just also talked about coming up with a fourth mechanic in general, which we haven't done yet. I don't know that we need to because we have the case file slot, which is going to have a lot of different random one-off mechanics in it. But we also could. But then at some point once some more people showed up, I was going to have us focus on the archetypes for the set. We have a few. Research is very clearly white, blue, black. So that's going to be focused in those colors. We do need to differentiate how each color is going to use the research. More people, you say. Hello, Nijugo. How you doing? And then morph is probably going to be in green, blue, 7. I'm not sure what you mean by 7. 7 more people? 7 +1/+1 counters? Archetype 7? That's how you're doing. Oh, like on a scale from 1 to 10? Gotcha. No, you're good. I did consider that as the answer to my question, but I was thinking in terms of like, how are you doing? Good, bad? I wasn't thinking like on a scale from 1 to 10, so gotcha. Seven, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, probably a 7 for me too. I've been, granted, I probably always say 7, but I was working really hard on the videos for the channel this week, and so I didn't have a lot of time to focus on other stuff, and it was a bit stressful, so my energy's a bit low, but I was pretty happy with how it all turned out, so that's good. And I always love the streaming part of the week. All right, I'm going to get rid of a lot of this extra garbage that we don't want or need. I'll put it into another set file just for posterity in case we want to go back and look at it later. Let's see. Just morph. Obviously we want morph. Research counters. Why are there so many of these? Oh, right, I remember. What about a mechanic named Insight, where you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and it attacks each turn if able? Some cards incite themselves and some cards incite others. Flavor around taking action against the organization. Seems a little similar to Unleash. It sure does. Difference being with Unleash, you can't block, so you don't also have to attack. Of course, if you are attacking and you don't have vigilance, you can't block. So it is very similar. It doesn't mean we can't do it. Let's see. Where are we at? Something like that. Also Riot, which is fixed unleash. Yes, those are definitely very similar. And Riot would also make sense. Didn't you just get a 3/2 for 2? It doesn't usually get that. Feels kind of hard to cost. Riot also synergizes with Propagate. Yes, it sure does. So that's why I was trying to come up with a +1/+1 counter mechanic. So if we have it and Propagate, we can have those working together. A 2-0. Well, then you just have it enter as a 3/1 for 2. I guess that's fine. But yeah, this feels hard to do on small creatures. What are the Riot cards that exist? Okay, so there is a 2/2 for 2, but it's red and green. So you get a 3/3 for 2, but you have to pay 2 colors for it, which is a lot more fair. And then other than that, everything else costs at least 3. Which is, I mean, cool, I guess. It's just, it's a cool mechanic. I like Riot. It's just, again, we're trying to make it aggro, and it's hard if it can't go on 1 and 2 drops. Though they do have other upsides. See Burning Tree Vandal. Yes, we could make the stats weaker than you would ordinarily get in that creature. So this could be a 1/1 Riot with another ability. Like Burning Tree Vandal makes it so you get to discard and draw. This could do something like attacks, target creature can't block this turn. I mean, there is an uncommon one, Clamor Shaman. Oh, and that's 3 mana uncommon for the same ability. Look, I'm not, I was just trying to throw something out. That's Clamor Shaman. Yeah, I didn't realize it was exactly the same. I thought Clamor Shaman would have had different stats. Fine. Could be a 1/2 with whenever it attacks, it gets +1/-1 until end of turn. That is interesting. So you could have it enter as a 2/3, and then when it attacks, it becomes a 3/2, or you can have it be a 1/2 haste, and it attacks as a 2/1 haste. That is a cool idea. Thank you for saving me, Pie Guy. Problem is that I'm not sure how many of these interesting cheap Riot designs there are. Probably not a lot. There only have to be 1 or 2. That's a good point. All right. Well, what would our other Riot color be? I mean, we could do green, but then we're just remaking the Gruul Guild from Ravnica Allegiance. So yeah, white seems like they definitely flavored the red white humans like rioters in Avacyn Restored. So that could sort of be the same idea. Yeah, not blue. Agreed. Yeah, I guess black. It could be black. So yeah, I don't want to just like redo white black or white green proliferate and red green riot. It just feels like we're retreading the same ground, and we are already kind of doing green blue morph. So we could focus on different colors for morph. Instead of green blue being the main morph focus, we could change colors on that. I just want to make sure that we're doing something sort of new and exciting instead of just rehashing old ground. White doesn't usually get haste, it generally gets flash, but I can see it bending for the sake of the set. Yeah. Let's see. They're very similar. They're not very similar. They have flash can function as haste. Let's see. Flash and color equals white. Oh, haste. I want to see how many white creatures have haste. There we go. Intrinsically, it's just a chroma. So, and that was, yeah, probably a time spiral thing. No, she was from Legions. Maybe that was just before they decided where haste was. There's always red-white humans as an archetype, but that doesn't really fit the goal of the stream right now. Yeah. Okay. I guess before we get too far down this rabbit hole, what do you guys think that we should focus our other mechanics in? We're definitely doing research counters, and we're definitely doing morph. And which colors they're in and focused in, that's up for debate. Suspend white creatures got haste. That is a good point. Yes. But that's just, of course, being a function of the mechanic. I don't think that haste should be taken as a precedent in any color thanks to suspend. Hello, Wind. How you doing? Haste is a function of riot, the mechanic. That's true, but it's a bit different with haste, because the only reason that they gave all suspend creatures haste was because that's how people assumed that it worked. Because you've been waiting for this spell to come down for 3 turns, why can't you just attack with it already? And so they were trying to fight a losing battle with human nature there, so they just decided, okay, suspend gets haste. Oh, you're Joshing. Okay. Okay, cool. Sometimes I'm, not sure. So, no, we don't have suspend. We were talking about about giving haste to white. We are trying to nail down our mechanics. Sorcerers had mentioned that he wasn't into the idea of propagate in red, which propagate was like our third mechanic that had been sort of included in the set for red green. So we were trying to come up with more mechanics. But before we actually do that, I kind of want to figure out, where do you guys feel that our 2 mechanics that we know we're doing, which is morph and research, how do we want to focus those in our archetypes? Currently, I have research being in white, blue, and black, because I feel like those are the most clinical, researchy colors. That doesn't mean that we have to focus on it in all 3 colors. So, I don't know. We definitely want to have the color pairs use it distinctly. Oh yeah, case file with a suspend creature makes perfect sense. But yeah, we had also decided to wait a bit on designing the case files, which because they're not going to form the backbone of our set. But I should be keeping track of all these ideas so that we can have them when we are ready to design them. Let's see, I had something. Here we go. Wacky creature abilities. Suspend. There we go. All right. Yajuga says, I like black-green morph. That is a bit of a change from blue-green, which was Khans of Tarkir, which was probably the last major time we had morph other than Time Spiral Remastered. So I do like the idea of changing it. Morph should be in all colors, with the support being black-green, although black-green would be a good place for Riot as well. I feel strongly that research should be in at least blue-black. If it has other colors, then it is fine, but it fits very thematically in at least blue-black. So I guess what I'm saying is it should be Esper with the current plan. Okay. So, but you definitely want to focus on research in blue-black. Because, like, I think research may appear specifically just in white, blue, and black, but that doesn't mean that white-blue as a color pair has to focus on that. Even though you could definitely build a research deck in those colors. Also, the Morph Commander deck with Sultai. You're right. I neglected to mention that one. But yes, that was also blue, green, black. So there will be a bit of overlap there, but a bit less at least, because we won't be focusing on the green-blue aspect. And probably a lot of the cards that cared about face-down creatures in the past were still blue, even though the whole deck had a bunch of black and green cards. That's what I was trying to say. Thanks for getting what I was trying to say. Excellent. What about having research payoffs be in black-blue and gaining research points in white-blue? That's kind of a cool idea. So that way you can build your research from whatever two colors you want. White to gain research and blue to spend it, or white to gain research and black to spend it. Or the same thing with blue. So you have like kind of 4 options, although one of those would be a monocolored deck. I like that. Of course, we still need something for white-blue to have as a payoff. I guess we have white-blue would still be a gain research and payoff for research deck. So the question is, how do they play out differently? How does white get its research? How does white's research differ from blue's? And how do blue's payoffs differ from black's? And so when mixing them, how do you make different, like, decks that function and feel different? Does that make sense? Okay, easiest colors to get research counters, and then blue-black, most payoffs for research counters. So blue-white's about building it up a ton and then firing it off. That sounds like control. Blue-black is about managing your inflow and outflow. Well, our concept for research was that you never spend them, because we didn't want them to be too much like energy. Maybe blue can gain them innately, but white and black have to jump through conditions like creatures dying. That's a cool idea. That would make white-black more of an aristocrats. think tank. Enchantment? What about enchantments? Oh, think tank is an enchantment that researches. Okay, yeah. Oh, is there one called that? Think tank. There sure is. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put it into your graveyard. So it's a 3-mana enchantment that surveils 1 each turn. It's not a half bad card, actually. Trying to make the chat box a bit more readable. So like this, the text isn't readable, and like this, your names aren't very readable. So I guess it's a question of what's more important. This is probably fine. All right. 4 black murder costs 1 less for research. Okay. It doesn't seem bad at all. Oops. 4 black. 4 black. There we go. White red could be propagate research counters. Well, I don't hate that. Costs 1 less for each research counter you have. I keep trying to spell research with 2 A's. Okay, so I guess on the subject of propagate, do we want to have it be in red? We had at least one person who wasn't thrilled with that idea. What does everybody else think? I know Najuga was already saying that he's on board. I'm on board, but I also want to make sure that other people are as well. Win thinks propagate feels simic. Yep, I can see that. Blue-green historically is the color that increases counters the most. So, you are not wrong. Yeah, I also don't agree. I mean, I think historically Sorcerers is right. Red has not focused on increasing counters. At least not a mechanic that does so. But I also think that it could. And I think it's a fine design space to try out. And so you have to walk the line between, you know, following the color pie as it has been laid out in the past, and also trying to forge some new design space, and not just rehash things that have already been done. I'm relatively indifferent toward it. It would have to be perfectly flavorful on cards for me to actively support it. Okay. Yes, red has plenty of space in the +1 counters mechanics. He's not saying that they don't get counters. He's saying that they don't increase counters that already exist. Like a mechanic that does so. Red has only 1 proliferate card, where every other color has at least 4. green-blue has like Varel of the Hulklade, who doubles counters on things like that. Red really cares about counters. That's a good way of putting it. There's only one straight-up mechanic that does it, yes. But there are other things that increase counters as well, one-off designs. And red has not really done that. So I see where he's coming from. I just also don't think... I think that because there's only one mechanic that increases counters, it's not a design space that's been fully explored, and I think red could do it. And I'm sure at some point in the future will do it. For example, Atraxa is every color except red. Yes, Atraxa is every color except red. I can't argue with you there, except to say that I don't think that, proliferate can't be in red. I mean, I could use the example that there is a red proliferate spell. I think of fire spreading, and fire is very red, and proliferate is a very spreading mechanic. So flavorfully, you could make that work. Since red has already cared about counters with energy, although it is a strange case. Yeah. Another option is we don't necessarily have to have propagate. But we could. But we don't have to. I don't know. I'm just saying. So it sounds like at this point, Najugo and I are the only ones who are advocating propagate in red. Mentor was red. Mentor was red. I don't know if it counts as an increasing counters mechanic, because there's... yes, it increases the number of counters on a creature, but it's still, just a +1/+1 counter mechanic, which every color gets. Phasing is a mechanic that I think has not been explored enough because it put a bad taste in people's mouths. Yeah, I wasn't around for when phasing was a thing, so I can't really say. Obviously, they've done a few cards with phasing recently. Teferi's Protection, and they have 2 cards in Forgotten Realms with, that phase things. So I don't know if it's good or not. I haven't really played with it much, except for, like, Oubliette. Haunt is a mechanic that I think didn't get a fair shot because they didn't design it well. But I think I said that on the last stream, so at this point I'm just repeating myself. Okay, now we also have to think about, even though flavorfully, research makes sense in white and blue and black. If we have those there, if we have that in those 3 colors, and then we have propagate in 2 colors, propagate obviously works well with research counters. So you add those together, you get like 6 deck types that all are focusing on research, and that's a lot. And it's not actually 5 because unless these are red-green, sorry, it's not actually 6. Unless these are red-green, you can't just multiply them. If one of them's white and... what would be a good propagate color? Green and... yeah, green-white. Then you only have, like, 5 decks. But still, that's a lot of decks to care about research. So, what I'm saying is we could consider just having research in 2 colors, even though it fits in 3. And propagate, that's in 2 colors, and that way you have 4 decks that would care about research in different ways, and even that's a bit of a lot. So maybe we just prune research down to 2 colors. Obviously blue, so then the question is white or black. And I know Pie Guy was saying black, for sure. Maybe we could have, like, a card in white that gives you research? or we find a different mechanic than propagate. That's true. I'm not completely sold on the mechanic in general. However, it does work with research counters, which it's always good when your mechanics synergize. So we could either get rid of propagate and then we just have the 3 research decks, or we could keep propagate and reduce the colors. What about research being primary, blue, black, and then white is secondary? Then give white to propagate if you do want to lean into blue-white research. That seems like a reasonable choice. Now that I'm thinking about it, Riot doesn't work very well with Morph either. Yeah. Well, what? I mean, I guess we know we want research and Morph. So which mechanics synergize well? Because you do kind of want some synergy between your mechanics and your set. And propagate works well with research. So is there anything, I guess, that we can think of that works well with Morph? Well, morph creatures are colorless, so maybe something that cares about colorless creatures or the color of a creature, and then you can turn it into a colored creature at instant speed. Mechanics from Khans of Tarkir, which is the last standard set with morph, aside from the other sets in the block, obviously. Were Outlast, Prowess, Delve, Raid, and Ferocious. So Outlast is a defensive +1/+1 counter mechanic. It helps you defend against the opponent, who will always have a 3-drop since it's morph. And it lets you play a late game when your opponent is flipping up their huge morphs. So it's not like any direct synergy, but it kind of plays well. Prowess, which is whenever you play a non-creature spell, creature gets +1/+1. That is actually anti-synergy because morphs are creature spells. Delve, morphs die easily, and then that's something you can delve away. Raid, there you go. Raid has synergy because the benefit of morphs is that you always have a 3-drop, and that means that you can always attack on turn 4 and trigger raid. And Ferocious is if you control creatures with power 4 or greater. It's another creature-based one. I guess if you have 2 morphs, you automatically have Ferocious. No, Ferocious cares not about total power, it cares about 4 power. So, I guess you could use morph to get a 4-power creature out a bit quicker. Yeah, probably even not, though, since it still costs a lot to flip up. So probably some slight anti-synergy there as well. Mechanics that care about creatures and attacking like Battalion work well since your opponent is less likely to block. That is a good point. Okay, so morph synergies. Mentor? Somebody say Mentor? Mentor was earlier. Actually, Mentor does work, because if you have a 3-power Mentor creature, they can mentor a morph creature, and then it flips up, it keeps the counter. So Mentor works, Raid works, and Battalion. One says Formidable is fun. Formidable is kind of cool. It needs 8 power, though, which is going to be... it's a lot. I don't know that Formidable has a lot of extra design space that they didn't explore in Dragons of Tarkir. Mentor works, but not flavorfully. You are right. It is a flavor fail, so we can probably just forget about that. Bold. I don't know how to show. I could just delete it. Raid works flavorfully. Battalion, maybe not as much. There's not as much of like a military. Well, maybe the organization is kind of the military. Have guards and stuff. Maybe. Well, that means that flavorfully it doesn't work, because Battalion is probably going to be flavored as the people attacking the organization. So Raid is good. Or we can come up with something. we are already reusing morph, so we could try and come up with a new mechanic. Probably some kind of death ability, right? Like when they die, they have an ability. I guess that wouldn't trigger if they're still morphed at that point. But something from the graveyard, like Delve or Scavenge, since the 2/2s die really easily. Exploit works really well with that. Oh, if it were undercover, Exploit. Exploit does fit the flavor. Exploit with undercover. You may cast it face down as a 2/2 creature for 3. When it dies, exile it. As long as it remains exiled, you may cast it from exile for its undercover cost. That's a good point. So exploit in this case could be white-black instead of the blue-black from Dragons of Tarkir. White-black would be, I mean, it's aristocratic. It can sacrifice creatures. White creatures usually sacrifice themselves, I guess, rather than having other cards sacrifice them. But it could still work. I don't know. What do you guys think of Undercover versus Morph? It's a cool mechanic. I would be willing to try it. It's a bend, but an acceptable one. Yes, I think I feel the same way. The white sacks. Yeah, I mean, blue doesn't usually sacrifice creatures either, so it was even a bend for that in Dragons of Tarkir, right? I think the colors most likely to sacrifice their own creatures for stuff is red and black. I've played with a mechanic functionally identical called Spook, and it is quite fun. Okay, that's the Mario the Gathering one. I think it may have been sorcerers who suggested this. It may have been from another person's custom set. Spook exiles face up for what it's worth. Yes, this seems to as well. Because unless a card says exile it face down, I believe it's just always exiled face up. Which would mean that your opponent knows what they've unleashed. Which kind of fits the flavor. Okay, so what I'm hearing is people like Undercover. At least 2 people do. I do. I think Sorcerers is the one who suggested it in the first place and is therefore on board with it. So maybe we should just do that. And yeah, I know other people have used this mechanic before. I never have. So I'm sure I will have fun designing stuff for it. Undercover specifies face down. Oh, so I've just written it wrong. Gotcha. Okay. Check the Discord. Noir store. Let's see. Find undercover. So that face down without revealing it. Instead, you may cast it face up while it's exiled this way. Yeah. So technically, this has a bit of a rules issue, which is that put it in custom designs. Is it not showing up? There's some stuff showing up, but I'm not sure if I can see like the actual, or I'm not finding the actual mechanic is printed. But someone put a link to Secrets of the River Cities, which is where it was before, I believe, and I found it there. And so yes, it does exile face down. Let me copy the text into here. Undercover, you know, whatever. Okay. 4-3. No. Okay. So a bit of the rules issue with this is that you sort of want all your creatures to focus. You want all of your morph cards to function pretty much the same way. So every morph card, even if it's a different type of morph, is played as a 2/2 for 3, and then can be turned. And then when it dies, you have to reveal it. It doesn't have an extra mana cost. That's spook. Fair enough. Oh yeah, since you're already getting like 2 creatures out of the deal. We could do spook, yeah, or we could rename it, you know, just to fit our set, because undercover makes some perfect sense in our set. So, because this is a self-contained set, we don't necessarily have to worry about the rules implications of having morphs that function differently. But, you know, imagine if this were an official mechanic, and you're playing in Modern, you know, and you have undercover and you have morph, and when a creature dies, you just tell your opponent, this one you don't get to see. Even though normally the rules are you do get to see it as soon as it leaves the battlefield. Of course, then later on, I guess at the end of the game, you could reveal it, and you would have to reveal that it has undercover. It's just another rules step. I do see the problems that undercover has alongside morph. Of course, this is a standalone set. I don't like to design my sets as though there's a fine line to walk. I don't want to balance all my cards around everything that exists, but at the same time, there are rules conventions for a reason. Yes, Bianco, it looks like undercover itself doesn't have a cost. You're just casting it later for its full cost. And the plus side of that is, first, you get a 2/2 creature for 3, which is not great, but you're getting it bonus, because later on, you can still play the creature for its actual cost. Or we could have it be that it has a cost, an undercover cost, and then later you can play it for its undercover cost. We can do it either way. Just because the original mechanic with the name does it one way, we aren't beholden to that. Pie Guy says, yeah, the fix is you reveal it at the end of the game, which is just the case anyways. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, you know, 2 different things to keep track of, which is more of a memories issue. But I am down to try undercover as is. We are not bound by the laws of this land. True. And yeah, so like the custom magic community, like it's, if somebody comes up with something cool, you can feel free to take that and adjust it as you need for your set. I mean, you should probably give credit to the original designer, but at the same time, we're all just trying to make cool magic stuff. And so whatever works for you, feel free to make it work for you. So yeah, is everybody on board with switching from morph to undercover? And yeah, then we could squeeze in exploit, which also fits the flavor of research. In Mardu, ooh, 3-color. Okay, I could see that. Okay, so the question remains, is research still in 3 colors? And I guess that's partially based on, are we still doing propagate? Think Undercover Spook is at least more interesting than Vanilla Morph, so I'm behind it. Cool. Okay. Sounds like we are going to give it a try then. So do we still want propagate? It does. I mean, at that point, we don't have a +1/+1 counter. Propagate would still combo with research counters, but we could just get rid of it and include a different +1/+1 counter mechanic. If we're not doing propagate, keep it in 3 colors. Okay. So then white-black would have both exploit and propagate. Research counters, sorry. So it would still have 2 mechanics, which is fine. But just something to be aware of. I mean, you could use the exploit to give you research counters. We don't need a +1/+1 counter mechanic to use +1/+1 counters. That is true. Or we could just grab a 4th one. Yeah. So we're talking about having an aggro mechanic, and +1/+1 counters tend to help with that. I guess our new version of Morph, it's still not aggro, because you're still playing a 2/2 on turn 3. So, now personally, I really like late game formats and late game mechanics. I'm not as much of an aggro player, so I'm okay with not putting as much aggro stuff in. But I know other people do really like aggro, and I want to make sure that we have stuff in the set for them to play. So it doesn't have to be a +1/+1 counter mechanic, but we just need to have some sort of aggro archetype, I guess, is what I'm saying. And maybe we could find a way to make black-red exploit aggro. If my games aren't going to mill out, I'm not playing dirtily enough. I'm with you, Pie Guy. I really prefer to be getting close to the end of my deck. It's like I put these cards in here for a reason. I want to use all of them. I had some games the other night that was... I didn't draft an aggro deck, but we were playing a Khans of Tarkir draft, but I got out of Anafenza on turn 3 and another creature on turn 4, and so then I was just attacking and I killed somebody in a few turns, and it was like I won the game, but it wasn't particularly exciting. I want those long drawn out battles. We could throw in an ability word as the 4th thing. Okay, that's a good idea. Those are generally pretty easy to use as filler. Yeah, okay. Okay. So there's no propagate. So it could be red-green. You had a game of the new set yesterday on Arena where you milled out your opponent. Ooh, did you have Tasha's Hideous Laughter? Hellbent, Ferocious, Raid, Morbid, and Rage. Classic aggro ability words. Okay. Raid was originally done in Khans of Tarkir as white, red, black. Then it was done in Ixalan as Pirates, blue, black, red. So it's been in every color except green. It could still be in green, though. And Raid's very simple. It's just, if you attacked, do a thing. I sure did draft it, although I wasn't playing it. I just sat there for 30-ish turns. Interesting. So I take it you weren't blue then, or you just didn't have faith in a spell that could mill anywhere from only 5 to 15 cards. Raid in Jund. Okay, and yeah, raid also fits the flavor of the plane. If there are groups who are trying to get at the organization. Okay, let's do raid. Oops. All right. So definitely raid in red-green. What do we have in blue-red? Undercover is... People said they wanted black-green. For sure. I'd feel like... Yeah... Do we just want to focus undercover in black-green and nothing else? The deck was in theory not too slow. It was Simic, but I had that wall that can pay mana to venture and some big green creatures with no way to break through. But notice my opponent only had like 8 cards left at one point. Gotcha. So you weren't trying to mill them out. It just kind of happened. Blue-red is raid plus research. Raid search. Yeah, so I want to make sure that we also have more of a variety of things. You know, we already have research in 3 color pairs. Obviously, you may be researching in other color pairs, but do we want to make that the focus? Or, you know, most sets have some random archetypes, like, you know, ramp isn't a mechanic in Forgotten Realms, but it is the green-blue archetype. Equipment are not the main mechanic in Forgotten Realms, but it's the red-white archetype, you know? So we can have just random stuff like that, caring about random things. Yeah, minor archetypes. That's a good way to put it. Like 2 spells or draw 2. Yes, those are some good common ones. Or it literally could just be instants and sorceries. It could care about colorless spells, which could be interesting. Which I guess is mostly just undercover. But it feels like it could also be artifacts. And we could probably have a case files or 2 that's colorless. Blue-red colorless. Blue-red archetype that cares about colorless feels like something that would be interesting to explore at some point. Devoid? Well, we could have a devoid monster. Yeah, that would be cool. Instant sorceries is boring. Yeah, I mean, I agree it's boring, but, you know. Something that consumes resource counters for benefits. Back to Wacky Dude. Devoid. And maybe, because you don't ordinarily spend research counters, we could have one of the case files be weird and spend it. Blue-red can care about all the strange artifacts the organization has collected. Pie Guide, that is a great idea. I like that a lot. Anyone have any objections? It's the Although maybe that should be more white-blue for research focus, but is a cool concept either way. Yeah, I could also definitely see it being white-blue. You know, you'd have, like, the neuralizer here, all the gear that, like, the Men in Black have, and also just, yeah, random stuff that they've been able to weaponize, you know. Could be white blue. Black red should be raid and exploit aggro. Attack with stuff. Kill your own stuff. Win. What if white-blue is artifact matters and red-white is actually using those artifacts as equipment in the field? Red-white, you say? That's too many artifact archetypes. Yeah, Najuga, I think he might be saying as opposed to blue-red. So it would be instead of the blue-red caring about artifacts archetype. So it would still just be 2. Let me write this down. I like to... I can focus better on stuff when I'm writing. So we have raid. We're talking about it in black, red, and green. Talking about research counters in white, blue, and black. We've got undercover in black, blue, and green. And lastly, we went with something that I've already forgotten. Exploit. Exploit is in what? White, red, black. Okay. For 4 total mechanics. And that seems fine to me. Okay. The thing is, you know, and you can have color pairs have different things that it focuses on, but you know, if you just take each of these mechanics is focused in 3 colors, which means that each one has 3 different color pairs that it could be focused in and built around. And so with 4 mechanics that are each doing this, that's 12 color pairs. So obviously you have some repeats in there, which means that there are color pairs that are focusing on multiple mechanics at once. And while that's not intrinsically bad, that's more expert level style stuff. And also, we do want some just random minor themes. So we can't afford to have every mechanic be focused. Like, even if it's in 3 colors, we can't have all 3 of those color pairs be focused on those mechanics, is I guess what I'm saying. Oops. There we go. Obviously. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot going on, and I just want to make sure that we're not trying to focus way too much on the mechanics. Even though the mechanics are what make the set, there's a lot of other stuff we want to focus on as well. See, because undercover, if we name it undercover, that also feels like a blue-black ability to me. Obviously, we can have it in, it'll be in all 5 colors, but focusing on it, it feels blue-black. But of course, blue-black is where we've focused our research. Red-white, I think, is a graveyardy theme. I don't hate that. I really liked when they did that in Lorehold, since red-white doesn't tend to focus on the graveyard very much. So it has research and exploit, so it can put its stuff in its graveyard fairly easily. All right. Access to exploit and research. Put your own stuff in the graveyard and then learn about it. Okay. I think that's pretty reasonable. Last but not least, Archetype 5. +1/+1 counters. Focus on the scary monsters pretending to be normal humans. Grindy archetype. Trading off morphs. And playing them late game. Maybe focus on ramp. That seems reasonable. Yeah, so green-white. Yeah, the most generic and boring green-white archetype is just focusing on +1 counters. We don't actually have any +1 counter mechanics, but that doesn't mean we can't focus on them. Green-white. Other normal ones are tokens, life gain, go tall aggro. Yeah, we could do go tall. It is very simple. We don't have to focus on it too hard either. And it does have access to all 4 mechanics, because there are no mechanics in which green and white overlap. Although go wide aggro works with exploit. And undercover. So. Go wide aggro. Yeah, so if you're going wide, you have tokens to exploit. You have... Undercover gives you just more creature gas in the late game. Although the creatures that you're currently playing are a bit worse, which is fine. Raid cares about attacking in green. And there's an argument that go wide and go tall both enable raid, because if you have a lot of creatures, you can attack, and even if one of them dies, you got the attack in. Or if you have tokens, you could just chump attack with one of them. Or with the tall guy that they can't block effectively, that also enables raid. So either way is good for raid. Go white has been done to death in green-white, so I'd rather see go tall. They're both pretty common. Just personal opinion. M21 recently did go tall. Yeah, I mean, we could also make it sort of choose your own adventure, where we have like a signpost on common that can like exploit creatures to put +1 counters on itself. So it's sort of a mixture, and then we can have like an anthem effect and also something that makes your creature grow bigger. I don't know, even just like equipment or something. What I'm saying is we don't necessarily have to commit. We could go sideways aggro. Go slanty. That's sort of cool. It gives you the option to go either way. Now that means that there'll be less support for either one. But that's okay, I think. Oh, sorry. I misspelled that. Does that seem reasonable? Does that seem like a silly idea? I think it'd be interesting to try, but it's also, you know, sort of a throwaway color pair, since we have no mechanics that they share. What archetypes haven't we written out a primer for? Yeah, probably most of them. Let's see. Red, green, raid. Black. That doesn't really count as much of a primer. Let's see. I'm not sure. This was morph. I'm not sure if we want to focus undercover in that as well as in black, green, or not. So we may want to do something else in green, blue. All right, so let's just go down the list. White, blue. We didn't decide whether we wanted it to be artifacts or if we want blue, red to be artifacts. Yeah. Well, let's see. How about cards that ramp and draw? That's it's a unique idea, right? Well, blue and green share undercover. Otherwise, we could try and come up with something that is different. Oh, you know what we don't have? We don't have any tribes. So we could focus on a specific creature type. We could either like make a new creature type that makes sense in the context of the set, or mutant. Mutant's a cool idea. And green blue is definitely the colors to do it in. Evening, how are the archetypes looking? They are coming along. I'm getting pretty excited. We decided to switch out morph for undercover. Yep, we're locking them down right now. We're close to the end. So undercover is like morph, except let me go find it. You cannot turn the creature face up. When it dies, you exile it face down, and then later you can play it from exile. So that's our, yeah. We think it makes some flavor sense in context of the set. And also we put in exploit, which works well with undercover, since you can always replay the creature later. So that is what we changed, and so now black-green is our main undercover colors. We've got research in blue-black and white-blue and white-black. We added raid as a relatively small mechanic. I think I want to cut raid from black. I think I personally just want it red-green because black does already have research, and no, black has literally all of the the mechanics already, actually. So raid, exploit, undercover, and research. So I feel like we could cut raid. Okay, raid's a failure. Sure, that's fine. Okay, you seemed excited about the Jund, so I didn't want to just like shoot it down. Which obviously this could still be aggro raid plus exploit if you're using the red raid. Which I guess, yeah, I don't need to change that. So yeah, raid is just in red-green, and therefore that'll be our color pair where we focus the mechanic. Morph mechanic is now Jund instead of Teamer. No, sorry, Jund was what raid was up until a moment ago. I believe raid is, or our morph mechanic is still, yes, it's still 5-color, but it's focused in green-black and potentially blue. I'm not sure. Yeah, mostly in black-green, we'll say. And then we had just come up with, we were thinking about what kind of tribe makes sense in the context of this set, because most sets have like one archetype that cares about a creature type, and yeah, mutant tribe will make some sense. Whatever happened to investigate, or are we just getting rid of it? Yeah, so investigate was never officially in the set. Personally, I love investigate, and I think it makes some great sense in the set. The problem is, at the time, we both had too many returning mechanics, although we've just added 2 more now, but it's okay because we changed morph to not be a technically returning mechanic. So the problem was that it was another returning mechanic and it was another Innistrad mechanic, and we had a lot of Innistrad mechanics because the flavor of the set is very similar to the flavor of Innistrad. So I love investigate. I think it's a great mechanic. But yeah, currently it's not in the set. Maybe we could do a case file with investigate. I should probably just put these in the case file paths. It's just all one. Okay. Cool. Red-white graveyard matters because they have exploit and research, so they're sort of like destroying stuff and then investigating it. Oh, also, yeah, research is one of our main mechanics, and it sort of fills the same flavor as investigate. So the main things that we are a bit up in the air about are, we're not sure whether we want white-blue or blue-red to be our artifact-centric mechanic. Archetype, 14 case files, and 1 normal card. Are you saying like we have a bunch of case files with investigate and then just like a normal card that also has it for no good reason? I think white-blue makes sense for artifacts. It gives research a different way to go. It's a joke, I think. It is definitely a joke. I'm struggling to understand it, and I apologize for that. I prefer red-blue because it doesn't have another mechanic. Yeah, I guess I just also want to make sure that we are distinguishing the 3 different research archetypes. We could do both. True. All right. You know what? Yeah. I think a lot of these weird artifacts probably have some chaotic energy. And that makes some sense in red. And of course, you gotta have blue if you're doing some artifacts. Unless it's equipment. Oh, right. Red-blue is colorless matters. We did talk about that. Colorless matters. And that is a weird archetype. Which makes sense for this set. Focused on colorless cards. These could include lands, artifacts, undercover creatures, and maybe weird stuff from case files. So white-blue is your tech research, white-black is your autopsy and post-mortem stuff, and blue-black is throwing ethics to the wall. That feels like a good way of putting it, yes. The problem is, that's the flavor. Mechanically, how are they different? Maybe blue-green can focus on flipping cards back down for additional flip-up effects. Blue-green is mutant tribal. Yeah, flipping cards back down. Yeah, we definitely want to have some flipping cards back down. But yeah, we could just put that in black-green, which is the undercover stuff. And maybe have some stuff to flip stuff back down so you can keep dying forever. If you want a good inspiration for colorless matters, I've got a whole set with that as a theme. Excellent. Yeah, we just want to have it be one minor archetype, but we didn't want to just do the same old instants and sorceries. Kind of boring. So, yes, we could definitely use some help on this, because I'm not exactly sure how much we can do with it without actually devoting a significant chunk of the set to being colorless. I like blue-green as flash, but instead of flash, you're using morph. Oh, so it's just like, you're turning the creature up at instant speed. Oh, sorcerers. I'm not sure if you heard, because I know you just showed up. We decided to replace morph with undercover. And that is because we were trying to come up with mechanics that synergized well with morph. And somebody mentioned exploit. I think it was, Najugo mentioned exploit working well with undercover. So we decided exploit fits well with the set flavor, and we switched to undercover, which also fits well. So, Ice Feather Aven, yes. What exactly did that one do again? When it's turned face up, you may return another target creature to its owner's hand. Yeah, so the problem with that idea, sorcerers, is just that we can't turn them face up by themselves. Although we could, give them flash so you can play them. That's probably the sort of thing you want to have one or two creatures that have undercover and flash. But excellent. And then we would have green-blue as mutant tribal because we were trying to come up with a good tribe to care about in an archetype, and I think mutant makes some sense. There's probably some radioactive waste that this organization is, putting in the water or whatever. And mutants, of course, will also have to be flavored strangely. Set is going to want a couple good common sacrifice engines. Definitely. Graveyard undercover colorless matters. Research exploit. Yes, exploit is it can exploit. Exploit only hits one creature, so it's not as much of an engine, but it does. If you have a bunch of exploit creatures, that's good enough. Okay, I noticed that white-black research exploit looks pretty similar to graveyard research exploit. Viscera Seer, please. I mean, we could probably... I mean, I know you're saying that sarcastically. It could potentially work. Weed Folkarine says, I had a card in mind, it was blue, but other colors would work as well. Enchantment, blue. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, put an incognito counter on it. Remove 3 incognito counters and sacrifice card name. Turn up to 2 target creatures face up. That is a cool idea. Currently, Sorcerer's Undercover does not require a cost to turn up. Well, aside from, it's just the creature's cost. You can replay it from exile. So you said like, oh, just blue. Going rogue. I don't know. Be at least an uncommon. Okay. Face down. Excellent. Well, research is secondary in white-red because red doesn't have research. That's true. Does Undercover... I felt like it was primary graveyard while white-black is primary aristocrats. That makes some sense. Okay. I had it say enter face down. Yeah, okay, just because I missed that before. Can you just post the work in progress reminder text for Undercover in chat real quick? Yes, good call. No, it's not there. It is here. As a sort of reward for playing Morph Tribal. Yep, I agree with Volkarine. That is definitely the type of card that we want to have. And I think being able to turn your Undercover cards face up, like having a card that lets you do it, is a cool idea. So red-white cares about the graveyard. White-black is aristocrats. It's sacrificing creatures and researching. It doesn't even have to focus on research. Just aristocrats. Ghostbusters aggro, raid. Raid and exploit, so aggro... Are these different? They don't really have to be that different. Also, Undercover can go on non-creatures. That is a good call. Being able to flip them is a very powerful effect. Yes, it definitely is, because you're bypassing the cost of the card. So if it's, being able to flip up a morph card, if it's not on that card itself, you could be paying 2 mana to flip it up. And yeah, if it's a small creature, okay, that's fine. But if you're turning up like a 9-drop, you're getting a lot of value. And you're paying the same cost no matter what you turn up. So we definitely will need to balance the free flip up based on what we have in the set. While it can go on creatures, it feels a little out of flavor here. Yes. Because how is a land going to go undercover as a creature? Yeah, we have archetypes. Big research. Undercover on non-creatures is incredibly spicy. I also love that. Okay, I'm going to get more water. And when I get back, we can figure out what we're doing next. Oh. Don't get me wrong, it is 100% spicy. Yeah, the question is just how do we flavor it appropriately? Alright, as soon as I left, I figured out what we should probably be doing next is making signpost on commons. Does that make sense? Is undercover maybe too much value? You're basically guaranteed both sides. Any undercover creature beats out a regular creature. I haven't played with it, so I cannot say from experience. But, yes, as Nujugo's saying, 2/2s for 3 are bad. Now, if you're trading them off with an opponent's 2/2 for 3, that's okay, but then at that point you are both getting another creature effectively. And yes, you'll probably add a mana cost to the main face of the creature, like add 1 mana to its cost, just because it's a dual mode card and you usually want to make those a bit more expensive. Just makes me think of Adventure a little that way. Yes, it is pretty similar to an adventure, where the first adventure on the creature is always make a 2/2. And that was the problem with some of the adventure cards, is Bone Crusher Giant is not costed appropriately. Stomp is fine. Usually you would get that ability for 1 mana, so making it 2 is fine. But you also want to make the Bone Crusher Giant cost more. And you don't usually get a 4/3 for 3 with a protection-ish ability. So that side should have costed 4. Lovestruck Beast, even if you don't pay play the adventure, it's a 5/5 for 3 defender, which you don't usually get anyway. I don't understand. Yes. Yes. They had some problems. Brazen Borrower, let's see. Does the first half return any creature? Or any non-land permanent? The one that an opponent controls. Yeah, that effect usually costs 2 anyway. So it probably should have costed 3 on Brazen Borrower. And a Flash Flyer that can only block creatures with flying, well, that probably should cost 3 in general. So maybe that side of Brazen Borrower should have cost 4. Yeah, they just made this stuff too cheap. So if we do it right, and with Volcarine, that is definitely a valid concern. But I think if we cost it appropriately, it should be fine. By the way, now that Undercover puts things in exile, can we add a cheeky processor to the case file slot? Absolutely. Processor for Undercover. That's beautiful. No, get rid of it. Stop it. Okay, this was bad. This was a bad idea. Putting all these on the same card. Okay. Whatever. All right. Okay. So do we want to do... I'm going to copy these. Signposts and comments? I'll just go signposts. It's a bit shorter. Signposts, legends, yes, no. I'm not opposed. I don't know that we want to make all 10 of them legendary creatures, as they've done in Dominaria, Forgotten Realms, but those are sets where the fact that they're legendary matters. So, but I'm okay with, like, yeah, 2, 3, whatever makes sense. Didn't matter in Kaldheim or Forgotten Realms. You're right. It was in Kaldheim, wasn't it? All of them were legend. You're right. It didn't matter there. In Forgotten Realms, it doesn't mechanically matter, but flavorfully, they wanted to get as many like popular D&D characters in. So I thought that made perfect sense. But Kaldheim, oh, you're right. It did have a double cycle. Was one of them all sagas? I gotta look at this now. Scribble. Set Kaldheim rarity uncommon. Yeah. One of them, all of them were sagas, and one of them were, the cycles was legendary creatures, so interesting. We don't have as much lore for the set at the moment, so I think it can go either way. Hold up, unrelated, this set is begging for Oko, and Ichigo says no Oko. I don't see it begging for Oko, personally. Let's just reprint Eldraine Oko, got it. I mean, in the case file slot, but at uncommon, though, so you can fight fire with fire. Everybody gets an Oko. No, it's Prismatic Piper from Commander Legends. Everybody has access. Oko being locked up. Is Oko the planeswalker they've kidnapped? Or captured, as it were? All right, which signpost would we like to begin with? Oko going in and infiltrating this organization is something Oko would totally do. All right, hear me out. An elk that, when it becomes blocked, turns the blocker into food. I guess it depends on how deep we want to go with the funny part of the humorous designs. Because it is funny. Although the set is sort of more of a grim, dark feeling. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Okay. That's unironically an interesting idea. Cold Steel, the Hedgehog, and all that. Yeah, I had some more case files. Can you guess what these are? Oh boy. Okay. Made it work. Creature 1 green 3/1. Whenever the thing on the wing crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains Annihilator 1 until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. Is that like from the Terror at 10,000 feet, the Twilight Zone episode? I've definitely seen references to the thing on the wing, but I don't... If it's not from that, I'm not sure what it is from. Ninjugo's not a huge fan of this one. Oops. This was supposed to cost 3 mana. Yeah, so it was supposed to be like a cross between... like an O-ring effect, and then, you know, you're researching the creature. If you don't like it, that's okay. I'm just throwing out ideas. All right, white blue, totally original and unprecedented idea. It has flying and researchers whenever you cast something with flying. Also, this feels like it should be the white-black one. Yeah, that's reasonable. I was trying to flavor it as, like, a containment unit. But flavorfully, like, yeah, it kills a thing, effectively, which is definitely more white-black. Creature for 4 mana 3/4. Whenever Statue of the Crying Maiden deals combat damage to a creature, exile it with 4 time counters on it. It gains Suspend. Oh, that's a much better design for a Weeping Angel than the one that I made. Okay, I'm gonna steal that for another set that I'm working on. Najuga says it feels like an autopsy or an XCOM interrogation. Okay, yeah, let's also put down things that we want to reference, not in this style, in the set info. Inspiration. Okay. X-Files. SCP. Men in Black. Ghostbusters. Twilight Zone. Gravity Falls. I guess Doctor Who. First one is the Gremlin from Twilight, or at least the World War II superstition. Okay. On the Wing Cruise. Okay, I apologize. I don't know that reference, but I believe you. It's probably a good one. Oh no, this doesn't look good. How did that get? It's ruining the text. Hold on. Okay. It's probably fine. XCOM. I also don't really know XCOM. So I will need to brush up on that a bit. Probably want just a touch of Lovecraft. Good call. It's okay, my 4,000 hours in it can cover us both. Yeah, I saw a friend playing it once. Is it like a unit control game? I don't remember. Maybe I don't even remember what I saw. Let's see. Tasked with countering alien invasions of Earth. Okay. Turn-based strategy. Okay. All right. Let's ban. Okay. No? Yes? Oh, there it is. Okay. Excellent. All right. So. We're not liking this one. That's fine. This signpost should probably be an artifact, or at least care about artifacts. Too bad I'm already famous. Nice. Well, could you tell me your secrets? Actually, I don't need to be famous. Just like, I want the riches that tend to come along with it. Okay, so you were saying for white-black, something that kills a thing and researches. Instead of being enabler and path, just print that one Sphinx from MH2. Ooh. I haven't played enough of it yet. I ordered a box, but it got sent to the wrong address, so I'm going to have to wait even longer to get it. Oh, yeah, the 9 mana affinity for artifacts, Flying Cascade. Yeah, I don't know about that. The key is to click on suspicious links people on the internet send you. Thank you, Pie Guy. I'm going to try that. You don't have any suspicious links, do you? All right. So we actually maybe don't want to make this removal because people will just take and play that, and it's not as much of a signpost. You want to make it only good in its colors. White black, destroy target permanent, get a research counter. I have one for you. Ooh. I unironically do like that song. I think it's I think it's a perfectly good song. Okay, let's see. So you were saying, like, destroy target permanent. You gain a research counter. Follow experience. You get. They use the word get, so we shall as well. I mean, uncommon, this is what, 5 mana? So I do worry that if it's just a straight up like good removal spell, people will take it and play it even if they're not in the archetype. Probably should be non-land, but also this doesn't feel very signposty. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm saying. I mean, we definitely want this effect. But that feels like you could just have it be like destroy target creature, and we could have that be the common black removal spell. You know, oops, let's copy it. Black and something like that. Scientific method. 3 black for that effect, yeah. It depends on how pushed we want it to be. I definitely still remember the days where, you know, common black removal spell was 6 mana sorcery. Dark days. All right, where were we? I also remember the days of 4 black for Rite of the Serpent. Yeah, I guess I remember it because literally I drafted like a week ago Khans of Tarkir, and I had Rite of the Serpent in my deck. So it's not been that long for me. But, you know, they even also had Consigned to the Pit in Ravnica Allegiance, which is effectively the same. Here we go. Raid. +2/+2. Maybe? If you attacked with a creature this turn... Oh, they updated it, so it's just if you attacked this turn. Good. If you attacked this turn. I did it right. Okay. Very strong. Yeah. So it would come out swinging on turn 2 and then immediately become a 3/3, which means it would be too big for morphs to block if you're on the play. How about instead of +1/+1 counter, add mana? Ooh, okay, at the beginning of your post-combat main phase. If you attack this turn, add 1 mana of any color. That seems cool, because that could ramp you into a 4/4 on turn 3. Although I guess, do we need to have it gain haste? Because it's just going to add 1 mana for the turn that it comes down. Also uncommon, you're right. Yeah, I copied these while they were all common, so I'm going to need to change them all. 2/3 with no haste. So it's easier to survive. And it kills morphs at just 2 mana. So they're not going to be able to block it very well. That seems reasonable. Yeah, I like that. Good suggestion, Jugo. All right. Then I guess we'll need to start figuring out what creature types do we have. Obviously we have humans. What other creatures does this race have? Or does this plane have? We don't necessarily have to come up with that now. Maybe we should work on that at a later time. All right. What color pair you guys want to work on next? Humans, mutants. Yep, that's where I'm at. Do we have other non-human races? Right now, we do. We do not. We definitely should. Mutants, ninjas, and turtles. Don't forget about teenagers. Etherborn? That'd be pretty cool. That could be the exploit. Like, some of the exploit, anyway. Although I guess that's flavored more as, like, researching things. We can flavor it various ways. They were cool the one time they existed. I agree, they're a very cool race. Ooh, okay, undercover. This has got to be exciting. Oh no, don't tell me. Okay. I changed the Archetypes card instead of... Whatever. I'm going to roll with it. This is what we're doing now. Undercover. So we can either have something that benefits you for playing undercover cards, or we can have an undercover card. Or both. Creature or enchantment. Yep, that makes sense to me. An enchantment that pays you off, or a creature that has undercover. Something like that. Ooh. This guy could live forever, which might be a bit too strong. Because he could turn himself down, is what I'm saying. Alright, but Ninjugo suggests something that makes playing undercover cards cheaper and casting spells from exile cheaper. That seems reasonable. So I'm suggesting a creature that's probably like a 4/4 for 6. Which, stats are bad, but again, you're getting 2 creatures out of it, and you can potentially, with this design, it would just keep coming back. So you need to make it expensive so the opponent is definitely, or like if you're playing it, you definitely have to pay for the infinite loop. But that's probably still too strong. It isn't an uncommon, but a cool mythic rare would be a card that creates a copy of the front halves of undercovers when they die. Oh wait, that doesn't work since they die face down. It is a cool idea, though. Jugo is suggesting something that makes playing undercover cards cheaper. Should it say non-token? What happens if the tokens are turned face down? Turn target. Do they become 2/2s? I don't know that. Oh, classic Jungle Creeper. That's a good call. It is 8 mana to get it back and replay it. And this one is 6. So, same thing that happened. Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad that works. Although, since it can turn itself back face down, you don't really need to build with other undercover things in mind. So it maybe isn't as functional as a straight up undercover payoff like you were suggesting. This would be spells you cast from exile cost 1 less to cast. Another is an easy fix here. That is a good call. Turn another target creature you control face down, and then that would not need to cost quite as much. Okay, Ixodron doesn't hit tokens, so maybe it is a concern. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, if you turn a token face down, it probably does just become a 2/2, but how, are people going to understand that intrinsically? So is it even worth trying to make it happen? Or should we just play around it or build around it because people won't really get it? Whenever you play a face down creature effect, drain for 2. Tokens face down does work. Okay, I believe you. I just don't know from personal experience. Draining for 2 makes sense. I don't think it is too hard to build around, just throw non-token on a few cards. Yeah. So it's just a question of whether we even need to. I don't know. It's done creature spell, thank you. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Spells you cast from exile cost 1 less to cast. So this method still has your morphs costing 3, but the second half of them doesn't. But that's fine because this can come down on turn 2 and then you immediately go into... This is like an attrition engine. You're hitting your opponent for 2 damage every time you play one of these undercover spells. I like that design. Because then you're just trying to focus on trading off and hitting them for a bunch of life. Yeah. So question is 2 life too much? Should it be 1? I mean, it is very much a build around. It doesn't do anything if you're not playing morphs. We can definitely test that. Sure, I'll put it in the notes. Should drain for 1. And we can just test. Play test. Okay, I do like that better than my design. So, you win again. I'd rather see it be on the enters the battlefield of a face down rather than a cast, but it doesn't matter too much. Also multiples of this card is brutal, so draining for 1 is cheaper. That was my thought as well. But yes, whenever a face down creature, whenever a creature enters the battlefield face down under your control. Is that the correct wording? I think so. Okay. Yeah, this just enables the whole archetype. I do really like, but 2 is probably too strong. Should it drain for 2? I'll just change it now, and we can always change it back if we need. Okay, so we got 2 good ones so far. Colorless matters. face down creature. Ooh, okay. Ooh. Oh. Face down creature. And yep, you are right. For a face down. Okay. Excellent. All right, next up, I want to do this Colorless Matters card. I don't know where we're taking it, but I'm excited. Something about colorless. Okay, so we got artifacts, we got morphs, we got lands are colorless, and we'll probably have something in the case files. Either counting, pumping, or enter the battlefield trigger. Okay. So I don't want this to care exclusively about the face down creatures, the morphs, because it's not in the main colors for that. So just colorless in general. Like pumping colorless creatures is effectively just going to be morph creatures. So counting maybe the number of colorless permanents you control. Whenever a colorless non-land permanent enters the battlefield under your control, ooh, it gets +1/+1 against flying until end of turn. Yeah, artifact creatures, Nijugo, although I assume there will be fewer of them since we have colorless creatures available just as morphs. I mean, obviously you want to play them in the right color deck, but you also don't have to. Nijugo doesn't like non-land, because, yeah, lands are one of the colorless things that it could care about. However, if it can trigger on land, then it's just landfall. So what other... Blue-red basically never cares about lands. Red and blue both have landfall cards, so it's... True, but landfall is in every color, so... Although landfall was focused in red every time we've been to Zendikar. But Pie Guy may be talking about blue-red as an archetype as opposed to the colors individually. I definitely see where both of you are coming from. I also kind of want it to be able to care about lands, but, you know, also, if it is +1/+1 and flying until end of turn whenever a colorless thing enters under your control, then that's basically just going to be landfall. You don't have to build around the colorless part of it at all. Blue-red hasn't done it, but if blue and red can do it, blue-red can do it. I mean, yes. Yeah, theoretically. Targets. But this, like, if it cares about lands, you have to be very careful about how many you play. X is the number of colorless permanents you control. So yeah, this doesn't really work if you're including lands. But I also want it to be able to include lands. Wizards being lazy with archetypes is not precedent in the negative. What about... whenever a colorless permanent enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So that could be landfall, but you could make it bigger with colorless artifacts. That's not bad. Colorless permanent. So it's landfall plus. It'd be like 2. I don't know, something like that. 1 3 for 3. Flyer or non-flyer? Yeah. That seems reasonable. Yes, flying? Okay. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Pie Guy? Some kind of bird, probably. I can confirm we probably have birds on this plane. So, one more type. Bird Artificer. Ooh, so they are sapient birds. Bird Horror Artificer. Or just Horror Artificer. Now, are they actually a horror, or do they just artifice horror? My big issue with caring about lands is that it feels out of flavor. This is supposed to be people caring about the strange creatures and artifacts in the organization, and lands are neither. Yeah, I mean, flavorfully, we will probably have a land or two that is itself strange. So that could work. But yeah, all lands in general, I agree. It doesn't necessarily fit the flavor. Strange lands are totally a thing. Blackrock Quarry from Control, the Eldest House. Yeah, the question is how many strange lands can we fit? You know, you're still going to be having basic mountains, basic forests, and those are going to also trigger the weird thing. Yeah, Paius is the same thing. Well, let's try. Let's see. It could even be on each creature you control. That would have to be a big boy, like 5 mana at least. Now, I guess this design, like the other, also cares about having a lot of creatures, and maybe that's not necessarily what we are interested in doing. All right, and then Pie Guy had suggested whenever a colorless non-land permanent enters the battlefield under your control, card name gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn, and that would probably just be like a 2-drop. You could have a 2/2 for 2 that doesn't. Yeah, that makes sense. Although I guess, yeah, you didn't say it had to be a 2/2, so it could be any size, really. I mean, that's a normal planes. I kind of feel like we're running into an issue of making an undercover payoff that incidentally cares about artifacts. You're not wrong. So you're saying that this should specifically call out artifacts? Or, I mean... There's got to be an elegant way to make it so that it can focus on all of the colorless things and not too much on any one of them. I'm just voicing a concern I'm having for the moment, not sure exactly what to do or if anything needs to be done against it. No, I'm with you, Pie Guy. I understand. Lands plus artifacts plus undercover is pretty distinct. Yes, and Najugo, I'm with you if that is equal. You know, if it cares about lands and artifacts and undercover, and it doesn't just end up caring about landfall or just caring about undercover, or even just artifacts. We need to find a way where it can care about them all equally. Or if not equally, enough that you're still trying to play all three. I mean, obviously you're playing lands. That's a given, but... For each type among colorless permanents you control. I mean, that straight up calls it out, but yeah. So, like, it's a bit blunt, but sometimes you can be blunt. For each type among colorless permanents you control, gets +2/+2. I guess that would go first. Or this doesn't even have to be a creature. It could be sorcery. Draw a card for each type, and then that would be like that. And gets +1/+1 if you control 3 or more, and has flying. Yes, oops. Yeah, draw a card is weak. I mean, we could make it 2 mana. But yeah, it's not actually like a payoff. It is. I mean, it draws you cards, which is good, but it's not going to win you the game. So you're right. This may be too weak. If there are 3, that's a better way of wording it. If there are 3 or more types among colorless permanents you control, dude has flying. So that would turn it. Okay, so this needs to cost at least 3 mana if it's a 2/2. Or I guess we could just make it a 1/1 for 2. Because it's always going to have +1 from lands, right? There's only like one colored land in the game, and it doesn't produce blue or red. So you're always going to have that. Then if you can get an artifact, it becomes a 3/3 for 2. And then if you can also get a morph, it becomes a 4/4 flyer. That seems good. It is an actual payoff. It can win you the game. Dryad Arbor is not green? I think it is. Yeah, it's green. Maybe what I said was weird and you're saying it is, and we're just confused about what I was saying. Yeah, I was saying it is green. I was saying there's only one colored land in the game, and I was saying that's Dryad Arbor. Perhaps I misspoke and said something differently, but that's what I meant, was that it is the only colored land, at least that I can think of, in the game. It has a color indicator. It wouldn't normally count as green. But it does count as green. I think. Due to its color indicator appearing to the left of its type line, Dryad Arbor is green. Color indicators apply in all zones, not just the battlefield. I don't like them. It does, but it shouldn't. Yeah, no, I mean, they are weird. I agree. I'm not sure how I feel about them, but anyhow, that is all an aside. So this is sort of a brute force solution, which could be an indicator that our theme for this archetype, or for this color pair, is not really strong enough. Or we can just brute force it and see how it goes, and see if it's an interesting enough theme. Basically, this is asking you to play a colorless creature and an artifact. You already have the lands in the bag, so we can also probably try and come up with some other colorless permanent types. I guess all that's left is like enchantment and planeswalker. So what colors are undercover again? So it's going to be in all 5 colors. It's focused in black and green. All right, let's just get rid of all those. Okay, couldn't remember what we settled on. Yep. All right. This is good enough for now. We can always try out the theme. If it's not working, we can figure something else out. So this just feels like it should straight up have exploit, right? The black-white one. Now, exploit doesn't have to be on creatures, although it is. I think every exploit trigger is on a creature. That is correct. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. I have to run. See you later. All right, Najugo, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all of your suggestions and ideas. And yeah, hope to see you next week. And of course, on Discord. It's just when it exploits a creature. When This guy exploits a creature. You get a research counter. And then something about... Oh! It's aristocrats, so it's trying to grind the opponent out, right? So... sacrifice a creature to get a research counter. I can spell. Alright. I don't know if that's any good. So it's like a reanimation spell, which doesn't necessarily fit as well into aristocrats, but it could if you sacrifice a big creature that you want to get back. I don't know if it's as good for what the archetype is trying to do, though. It just lets you exploit a creature. It doesn't give you a payoff for doing so. Kinda. It's not a very good one. All right. Whenever... I agree. This does seem kind of middling. How about this? Whenever a permanent you control exploits a creature, do something. Draw a card. Can you tell I like grindy games? Drawing cards. I just keep tacking it onto stuff. But yeah, I like... This would be the first card that triggers anytime you exploit a creature. Exploits a creature. Draw a card. That design feels kind of mono-black. You're right. How can we make this more white? I guess usually the white part of white-black aristocrats is making the tokens, and black is sacrificing them. Create a 1/1 white human creature token. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it basically makes all of your exploits free. After the first one? This would be whenever. It can't be worth 3 mana, though, is it? Is it? I guess if you get 2 triggers off, that's... 2 1/1s could be worth about 3 mana. It's generally closer to 2, but this could get you more. It's definitely aristocratic, so I don't think that's... I think this is a fine design. Doesn't have as much to do with research, but that's okay. Flash would be a mild power boost. Flash is good. What if you create the token and an opponent loses 1 life? That feels like 3 mana worth of value to me. Yeah. So I kind of like that idea. Let's see. We could either give Flash or and each opponent loses 1 life. So I also don't want it to feel too similar to this one, which is also an enchantment that's draining your opponent out. Now we could change this one, but I don't think we want both of these. Or we could have it be each opponent sacrifices a creature, which would bump up its cost a bit. Or, yeah, Denosis is saying we could give it Flash, which is definitely a bit more helpful because you could play it if one of your things is already gonna die and then exploit it. So then if you just play this, it's 4 mana. You would have to sacrifice a creature to make an opponent sacrifice a creature, but you get a 1/1 out of the deal. So base level, if you're playing this by itself, that's really bad. I mean, you could play Innocent Blood or Bone Splinters or Bone Shards, or there's a million better cards than this. But the fact that you can keep doing it, it's really good. Now, this currently says whenever a permanent you control exploits a creature. We could also have the trigger be whenever you sacrifice a creature. And that would mean that you wouldn't just have to exploit. You could sacrifice in other ways. If I were to play this in a deck, I'd want 7+ exploits before I'm happy with it, especially considering all the 2/2s that are free to sack with Undercover. You make a compelling point. This is 1 life, or we could do the version that is like Flash. Or we could do a version that is whenever you sacrifice a creature, a non-token creature. That's no fun, but probably a lot more fair. Yeah, good call. I don't know. Some of these are interesting. Some of them are probably fine. What if you make it non-token but make 2 tokens per sack? Whenever you sacrifice a non-token creature, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. Okay, that's getting interesting. So it's still black because it's still you're exploiting stuff, sacrificing stuff. Although exploit is going to be in white for this set as well. But it's white because it's you're getting tokens, and it's not necessarily bad to sacrifice stuff because you're getting 2 tokens. Now, you won't be able to sacrifice these tokens to trigger it more, but you can still use them. You can still sacrifice them for exploit just to get effects. This seems reasonable. It's a pretty good suggestion. Create a 5/7 with exploit, and this creature enters the battlefield with 3 -1/-1 counters unless it exploited a creature. Token. It has to exploit a creature token? Oh, it is a token. Well, what card is making the token? Is it this, or are you just saying whenever? Okay. That's just layers deep. Do we want -1/-1 counters in this set? We did put in a +1/+1 counter mechanic, right? No, we didn't. Raid doesn't intrinsically have +1/+1. We don't have a +1 counter mechanic, so we could do -1 counters. Whichever counter we use, we are going to want to use the other one on like a single case file card. Yeah, sorry, when that's like I could see a creature that has that effect, but making a token that has that effect is just really complicated. If it's a supplemental set, we can use both. Yeah, I'm not sure. We haven't really decided whether we're trying to go more complicated and supplemental style or just more standard. We could make the tokens more interesting if we wanted. If it were in the set, it would probably be an archetype. That's true. Whenever you have -1 counters in a set, it tends to be the focus because they don't do it very often. I'm just spitballing ideas specifically for this card. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad that you're throwing out ideas. I don't want you to feel like I'm not giving them fair consideration. Sacrifice 2 tokens to do something? Would that be on the same card, Bianco? Sacrifice 2 creatures, or I guess tokens. Create a 4/2 black horror creature token. You're literally just splicing them together. I mean, we could even give this exploit, or take away the exploit on this, and just be like, when card name enters the battlefield. Splicing tokens seems like a fun, rare idea. Good call. Good call. Let's copy that, make it rare. Horror Doctor. I'll go with operating room. I'm kind of for this, though. For this design, like for the rare, or for the uncommon version that was still exploity. Create 2/1/1 civilian tokens. Hey, I had to jump off for the past hour or so. Did I miss anything big since the signposts? Nope, we're still working on them. We've gotten 3 or 4 done at this point. We did the black-green one. You may have been there for that. We had some problems with the blue-red one. Just trying to care about colorless without caring too much about lands or about morphs is a bit odd, so we just brute forced said if there are 3 or more types among colorless permanents you control. Currently we're working on exploit. We have several options. No, not that. It was whenever you sacrifice a non-token creature. Creates. So, Pie Guy, were you saying you're for the idea of 1/1s or 2/2s? Sorry, 2/1s. This is probably fine. It's just a question of if it's exciting enough. Obviously, at base level, it's pretty bad. 3 mana to get 2 1/1s, and you have to sacrifice a creature for it. So the idea is hopefully those 1/1s can pay you back by giving you enough other stuff to exploit. I don't know. I like 2/1s as a concept, especially since exploiting civilians in white-black is rather odd. So white can justify it because it's exploiting monsters. Oh, and did my comment on black instant choose target creature, you get a research counter. Then the chosen creature gets -X till end of turn, where X is the number of research counters you have. Get proposed. It did not yet. And 2/1 feels horror-y. That's what I was thinking. That is sort of what they did. The Eldrazi horrors in Eldritch Moon were 3/2s, but I'm still on board with this. I might have cut offline before it went through. It's possible you did, or it's possible that I just did not see it. Okay, so we'll go with this for our archetype. Let's cut those and put them into the cut set file. Okay, so you suggested choose target creature, you get a research counter, then the blah, blah, blah. There we go. That seems like a good good card. Good design, that is. Extract knowledge. Exacting research. Something like that. Is the common black small removal. Common, okay. It seems fine at common. I just, I don't know. All right. Seems reasonable. All right, we have about 14 minutes. So can we get through the rest of the signposts? Probably not. We've been going slowly. Hello, Jack Wayhill. How are you doing today? We're raiding with a party of 4. Thank you very much. To be smear sorcerers. I'll DM you a skeleton with the commons and uncommons filled in based on Nuts and Bolts 13 article. Oh yeah, he did an updated Nuts and Bolts article. That's nice. I'm not sure if I read it or not. I used to be all on top of those Nuts and Bolts articles. Okay, so green white is pretty good. Not seen much of this set yet, but it looks pretty neat. Yeah, it's really exciting. We're sort of based on paranormal investigation and trying to contain dangerous creatures. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's a pretty cool set idea. Or yeah, let's do the big research one. So one of our mechanics is research, where just various spells and creatures give you research counters, which you don't really lose or use. You just, you don't expend them when you use them. You just keep trying to build it up and get as much research as possible. Okay. Okay. You have. Can this please be our card draw spell? $13 was basically just a remake of 2 with the card rules and distributions updated. Yeah, I don't remember if I looked at what the update was. Even that small analytical minutia is generally exciting to me, but I've just been so busy I haven't gotten to it. What do we think? Is this a good enough signpost uncommon, or should this just be like a blue spell? Because that could probably go on a blue spell. Okay, fine. Research. Draw. And now, Sorcerers is saying you lose 2 life and get 2 research counters. And then you draw a card for each research counter you have. Okay. Cost it like 5 or 6. I could see that. I guess it does. Yeah, maybe 6. I guess this would be spelled out. When card name deals combat damage to a player, get a research counter, and on your end step, if you have 3 or more research counters, draw a card, and maybe Death Touch. Oh, that's pretty good. It's a good design. And maybe Death Touch. Or it could be a 2/2, which would be able to be killed by morphs, which is important to keep in mind. All right. I am probably maybe a 1/3. Seems reasonable. 1/3 Death Touch for 3. When it does hit an opponent, you get a research counter, and of course, it's going to be a little hard to kill. It doesn't die to morphs. It does kill whatever it hits. It could potentially draw you an extra card every turn. It's real good. Well, probably not a sorcery. Oh, I don't know. It could be. I tried to retype it again. Okay. Yeah. I think that's probably a better design than trying to put the card draw spell as the signpost. Because this could go in black, mono black, or just draw a card for each research counter you have. Could go in mono blue. So, fine. Actually, let's just make this mono black. Keep it in the file for now. Okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll probably go a bit late because I do just want to get these archetypes done. So we'll probably stay on for another half hour or so. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back for the home stretch. The card draw design didn't feel very signpost-like. Yes, I agree with you. It's not like here, build around this. It's just like, it's fine. I mean, by itself, it can draw you some cards. Whatever. All right. Artifacts. This one wants to care about artifacts. Potentially also about research, but maybe that's not as much the main goal. So the goal is what? Just have a bunch of artifacts? Artifact control? Yeah, because they're not artifact creatures. So this is probably an artifact. Some sort of payoff for having a bunch of artifacts. So this seems like a decent payoff that fits. You can turn one of your creatures into a big beater. Maybe we should specify on your turn. You can turn one of your creatures huge if you have a bunch of artifacts. So very clearly a signpost uncommon. The question is it good enough? So if we have this, we'll want to have a bunch of other controlling artifacts, things that maybe gain you life, tap opposing creatures. Might be a little too cute and narrow. Creature, artifact fall, untap, and tap to untap target artifact. Okay, so you're saying creature, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, untap this guy, and tap, untap target artifact. It is definitely a bit cute, but it would let you reuse your artifacts, artifacts with tap abilities. And it would want you to play even more so that you can be untapping repeatedly. So then we would definitely want to have some payoffs, like rare or mythic level payoffs, where you can tap the artifact to do something. I'm talking Lux Cannon. Things like that. It's a cool idea. So, what does this guy cost? Is this a low drop? It's probably not too expensive. I'd assume that a lot of the artifacts would have cool tap effects, being strange and otherworldly. That's a good call. Sorry for turning you late. I have Tommy here with me as well. Oh, hello, Adam and Tommy. How you doing? I'm glad you were able to catch the last little bit here. We are currently designing the signpost uncommons for our paranormal set. White Blue is focused on artifacts, so we're working on that right now. So we have a guy who can untap artifacts, or we have an artifact that makes your creatures big. based on the number of artifacts you have. And honestly, I like both designs. But if the focus is more on using the artifacts, yeah, then Pie Guy's suggestion is a bit better. So we definitely also want to have like a common level artifact that cantrips. So, you know, pay 2 mana to get a small artifact, draw a card, and so that you can trigger some of your, if there's multiple artifact fall effects, there might be a couple. You can trigger those and keep drawing. So I do like this design, Pie Guy. I think I'm going to have to lose again. Although I don't have to delete this entirely. I can just make it not one of the archetypes cards. Oops. That could be like mono white or something. Or if, you know, Adam or Tommy or anyone else. Wind says Null Rod. If you have any other suggestions for, you know, white-blue artifact payoffs, I am all about that. Yeah. Wind, are you saying Null Rod as like a hate card in the set to shut off artifacts? Because I don't think we want that to be our signpost card for white-blue. Okay, so Pie Guy, how big are we thinking for this guy? Like 04? Something defensive? 03? Something like that? Oh, I didn't mean 03. Oh, 034. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking 04. For 2? Three mana, 1/4. Okay. Seems reasonable. Yeah. That way you can defend against some morphs. You can use its ability on your turn and then play an artifact and untap it and still be able to defend pretty well. Excellent. Okay, we have... Actually, it wasn't counting. 4 more. 4 more to go. Let's go with black-red, which is probably one of our least fleshed out archetypes. It has access to both raid and exploit, so we're thinking you just go really ham on attacking and sacrificing your things and probably gets a bunch of damage in. Probably a creature. And probably, since we have a lot of other like defensive bodies so far, I think we really want to have this one be more aggressively statted. So, if we want this to be aggro and have either raid or exploit, we could give it haste because we took away the haste from the other raid one. So yeah, this could have haste. Be like 3 mana, 3/1. And then, so we want it to be a reason to play black-red. We want it to be a reason to get aggressive. Okay, I'm thinking something like... Something like that. So you're building around 3-drops, and those 3-drops dying. Or, 3-drops or smaller. And then you can get them back for a turn, and you can keep using this guy to get it back. Well, to get one, each creature you can only get back once. So that you're not just, like, being repetitive. And so then it also has haste, so it can either use its ability immediately, or it can attack immediately, although 4/2 is not, like, super helpful stats in this set, because we have the morphs, who are just 2/2s, 4/3, that draw a creature card when they die. Okay. Seems solid. Maybe it should have a mana cost to activate and be a 4/3, though. Yeah. How expensive we thinking? 2 mana, 3 mana, 1 mana? Two seems reasonable. One. Yeah, if you're fine with 1, yeah, let's try 1. Ooh, that way you can play it, even just a turn late, turn 5, and get it going. Or you can, of course, with more toughness, be able to probably break through and just play it to attack on turn 4. Excellent. All right, we're getting aggressive. We're doing it. So, should the ability be only as a sorcery to not get back creatures for blockers? Oh, yeah. Good call. That is definitely not the goal. Nobody wants blockers. Okay, and then let's go green-white. Is go slanty aggro. The idea is that you can pick your poison. You can either go tall or go wide, making one creature huge or all your creatures a little bigger. Now, Kaladesh had a signpost on common that did that. It just wasn't really a good card or supported archetype, so that was like Engineered Might, I think. Yeah, it was 3 green, white for a sorcery that gives target creature +5/+5 in trample, or all your creatures +2/+2 in vigilance for the turn. So we could do something like that. That's just straight up a pump spell. Of course, if the payoff for going tall is too much bigger than the payoff for going wide, it's really not much of a pick your poison. What if you take a page out of Kaladish's book and make a creature with effective Fabricate 3, but not servo tokens, and maybe it gives your creatures vigilance statically too? Interesting. Okay. Just a little on the nose for Pick going wide or tall, but I think it works. No, you're right. Fabricate was pretty much that. You're right. That's why Engineered Might was in the set. I forgot about that because it just really wasn't a very good pick. But, yeah, you're right. Create 3 1/1 white human creature tokens. And then if this is... Oh, wait. No, it should be like a 2/2. Of course, usually how they would template this now is vigilance. Creatures you control have vigilance. For some reason, this isn't looking right. Yeah. For some reason, when I enter, it's just, they're all up all over each other. It's just because there's too much text? Yeah, that's what it is. Okay. That would be, sorry, other creatures you control have vigilance. It splits them up. Spacing is being weird. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. It just feels off. I mean, it could be a lifelinker. Vigilance, lifelink. And it could create human tokens with vigilance and lifelink. Or, ooh, what about how about we make the dichotomy even wider? So it's a trampler. So you're choosing between getting a 5/5 trample or a 2/2 trample with 1/1 tokens with lifelink. So you're not just choosing between size, but also ability. And yeah, the spacing's being weird, but that's the idea. What do you think? We could even have it be vigilant if we wanted, as well as trample. It's a white ability and a green ability. And then you're choosing between a green ability or a white ability. I think it works. Yeah. I like it. Okay. Excellent. We're almost done. We have red-white caring about graveyards. The reason I went with vigilance is that both going wide and tall benefit from it roughly equally and for consistency, but this totally works. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't like... Maybe it was just the spacing. I didn't like having... Well, actually, it's just this is a lot of text, and I didn't want to say both vigilance and other creatures you control have vigilance, which is how they template it nowadays, instead of just saying creatures you control have vigilance. Plus, he is now not giving the creatures their ability, so if he dies, the creatures are still lifelinking. But I guess if you have creatures from other sources, he's not granting them the ability, which was also part of your goal. Okay. The red-white is caring about the graveyard. I also made red-black a little... I made the signpost uncommon, care about the graveyard. So, but that's fine. Red can be good at putting stuff in the graveyard, and then it can have multiple signposts that care about that being there. So, how can this care about the graveyard? Red has Raid. Maybe Exploit. White has Exploit and Research. The overlap is... So the idea, I think, with the graveyard was that Exploit puts stuff into the graveyard. So this would care more about filling your graveyard. And I'm not sure how good it is. It's kind of a big cost in the grand scheme of things. Like, you know, Tuskeri Firewalker just attacks and impulses one. I guess you have to pay one. But this is a lot slower. So does the payoff need to be bigger? Do we just need to give it more abilities? Maybe this should be an attack trigger to incentivize raid, but then it is really similar to that red uncommon from Strixhaven. Yeah, the Tuskeri Firewalker. Or no, from Strixhaven. That was called Heim. What am I thinking? Or I know what I'm thinking. What are you thinking? Set Strixhaven. Color, red. Rarity, uncommon. Ah! Ardent Dust Speaker. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I always do this. ETB. There we go. I don't know. Okay. So that's an option. Actually, it would probably be, since it's just a one-time trigger. Ooh, what if, in order to care about your graveyard, what if this thing itself can be got back from your graveyard? 1/1 double strike with whenever it attacks, you may exile 2 cards from your graveyard. If so, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Dang it. You win again. All right. Sorry, I'm too good at this. No, I'm glad that you are. Honestly, I'm not as good at the signpost uncommons. I've historically not been able to come up with very good ones. I can do other parts of the set well, but yeah, I appreciate that you guys have been here to help out. Not on this card. Yeah, fair enough. Is 2 mana reasonable? No, it's got to be 3 mana, right? It could be hitting for 6 damage as soon as it attacks. Yeah, Fencing Ace is 2 mana for just a 1/1 double strike for 2, but you don't have to pay 2 colors for it. So this is 1 more. It's 1 more color, but it has self pump. 3 mana haste then. Oh dang. Or we could try it at 2 mana. Probably. It's just I'm imagining you go first, you play it on turn 2, then turn 3 you're attacking. I mean, I guess at that point, how do you have 2 cards in your graveyard? So maybe 2 mana is fair. What do you think? Yeah, I think 2 mana double strike. 2 mana no haste is fine. Yeah. I think I'm more scared of it coming out of nowhere for 1 more mana, than it coming down. Because, like, if you play it on turn 2, it's unlikely that you'll have the cards to exile for it on turn 3. It is possible. We'll probably put in a Cathartic Reunion type card, but, it's less likely. And at least your opponent has time to prepare. Okay, and then lastly, I think it's lastly. Yeah, I'm not, like, in love with any of these. That's not true. Sorry, I mean, I'm not in love with all of them. Some of them could change, but most of them, pretty solid. So we just have 1 left to go. Mutant Tribal. So it probably is a mutant, right? It's a creature. So what do we want our mutants to do? They probably get +1/+1 counters. What if they can switch their power and toughness? Or what if they do all sorts of wacky different things and you have to piece them together? So this one could let your mutants switch their power and toughness. And then, of course, it would have uneven stats. Or it'd be like a 2/5. How big is appropriate? 2/4 for 3. I like switching power toughness, but how about this? Oh, here we go. You're about to one-up me again. Alright, mutants you control can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so they're protected from morphs. And whenever one or more mutants you control deal combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. Interesting. Let's copy, paste. Whenever one or more mutants you control do combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. Yeah, feels pretty tempo-y. So by himself, target. By himself, he's a slith, so he can grow by himself, but he's also, he applies that ability to all your mutants, so he's probably fine at 3 mana 2/2. Does that seem reasonable? Okay, so if you're giving them Dauntless, you're planning to be attacking a lot with them. If you're hitting the opponent, you're planning to, I mean, you're going to grow your creatures. So it's tempo based. So we'll be playing a lot of like, we'll want some bounce spells for this archetype. It's a bit more aggressive, which is probably fine. We have several slower decks as well. Yeah, this seems reasonable. I'm not in love with this design. It just felt like mutants will lean toward counters, and a little tribal matters is good. I agree that they definitely feel like they'll lean toward counters. I also feel like the mutants maybe should have, none of them quite do the same thing. So they're all sort of doing things in their own different way, because they're mutants. But we still want them to have a cohesive plan. +1/+1 counters are always a good part of a creature plan. Yeah, I'm also not in love, but it's definitely a fine strategy, like a fine lord. Yeah, maybe the mutants have like 5 lords or something that all give different abilities. There should definitely be a power switching mutant. I'm just not sure it is the signpost or even green. That's reasonable. Yeah, so suffice to say, we probably want our mutants to be like tempo-y, tempo tribe, with stats manipulation. They can make themselves probably bigger, smaller, change their, switch them. And maybe have several different lords, not like to the point of being slivers or allies, but just all sort of different ideas working toward the same theme. Okay, crazy idea here. Actually, I don't know why this is just slivers now. Never mind. I mean, it turns all of you mutants into slivers, I guess. I am not sure why I immediately thought of this ability after saying that the mutants were not just going to be slivers. But that was sort of the idea, was if you have one creature that can change its own stats, a 1 creature. This is a mutant rare, but a cool one. Yeah, you're probably right. Ooh, just need to finish this one. Which, again, it's not bad. It's just a question of, is it truly exciting? Do I look at it and think, man, I gotta build a mutants deck? I'm not sure that I do. This is probably also a rare. Vigilance, trample. What other abilities are there? Ward and Ward 2. I was going to give him a list of abilities. Oops. But, like, what abilities does blue have? Hexproof, which they're phasing out for Ward, and Flying, which is just really powerful. And again, it's just very, it's rare. So, you can give flying to a mutant at the start of your combat if that feels more flashy. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still not sure if that's even what I'm looking for. I may need some more time to stew on this. Maybe I'll just call it here and still try and come up with something later. I think I might need a better idea of what the tribe is doing as a whole. Yeah. Yeah, I think building around the rare that makes them all share abilities could be cool. If you have abilities that are on different creatures, you know, a mutant that just has one like stat switching ability and one +1 counter ability, and then just if you play the rare, boom, now they all have all the abilities, and that gets real good, and you realize that they were always meant to sort of work together. That could be cool. So yeah, I think I'll leave this as is for now, and we can come back to it. So in that case, we're done with our first draft of our signpost uncommons. Anything else that anyone has to mention, talk about before I close it down for the day? If not, yeah, I'm going to get off for now, but thank you everyone for coming, for helping out. Pie Guy, for your great suggestions. Genosis and Bianco, I know you were in here talking too, and all the lurkers as well. We just really appreciate you. So we'll be back next Friday at the same time, and hope to see you there.